Just enough more.
Oh, no, this week.
Very passionate, but that's not just.
Well, awful.
That's the road already.
Should for granted.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about.
I have lots of.
You've got an 8 acre lot for sale? Yeah.
Seems no means. Yeah. I have some. It's an interesting way.
Yeah.
So did you have
So
some?
that you thinking.
All times. By chance.
Yeah, he's gonna be retiring for the start soon, so.
6 o'clock. Well, I saw some jobs, I'm almost.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and start this informational meeting. It is technically a select board meeting because the two of us are here, that's a quorum. The reality is it's not a select board meeting, it's purely to listen to Josh. Talk to us about the reeval that's in progress right now and should be done by next April. And the only preface I'll give to it is that we are in dire need of one. So the last several years, we have been out of whack with what the state says our valuation is. And every year it goes up and up and up. So every year for the last 3 years, we have artificially increased everybody's value. Everybody's value went up. So you didn't have to pay more taxes because of that. But it allowed those people who are getting exemptions to get the full exemption. Because if we're more than 90% off from what the state says, then we lose that percentage from the exemptions, veterans exemptions, homestead exemptions. I think there's one other that I don't recall. So it is to our benefit to be close to what the state gets us to. It's just getting harder and harder to do without a reeval. Now, that is not to say, and I just want to preface, values going up on property does not affect your taxes. Taxes are set independently. That's based on the budget, what we need to raise, what the town agrees to raise. All the reeval does is tell you how it's going to be distributed across the town. So again, like we've done in the past, if everybody's goes up exactly the same, then everybody's taxes would stay the same. Not the same as last year, but the same as it would have been this year. Having said that, there are during a reeval, it captures things that we either didn't know before, things that have happened to a property that we didn't realize, or a new increased value of a part of town or a type of property. So it is possible that some people's share of the taxes will go up and some people's share of the taxes will go down. But overall, it'll stay the same. So did I misstep?
No, you did an excellent job.
Okay.
You can keep going.
The reason I wanted to preface it with that, because I don't want anybody in here trying to slam him for the taxes. That's not what they're doing. They're not figuring out the taxes. that gets figured out independently and separate. So have at it, yours.
Appreciate it. I'll stand if that's okay.
Yep.
Everybody.
If you want to sit here, but
Sure.
whatever's
Yeah, all right.
good for you.
Let me stuff up there. Room here. But thank you for that introduction and you nailed a lot of the revaluation progress or process and the reason behind it on the head. In that explained a lot of it. It is, a big part of where towns are at right now is they're losing a lot of revenue. Whether it be from, school subsidy, revenue sharing from the state, your homestead, that's usually the area that the residents feel and then understand what the certified ratio is and how it affects the local taxpayer. But you're ahead of the game as opposed to a lot of other towns and cities in the state of Maine where you actually have a reval company on the books that's gonna have a reval done for you for April 1st, 2027. A lot of towns are calling right now saying, hey, we need a reval. And there's only a few of us doing it. So a lot of towns are booking out. We just booked one out into 28, which in other towns that are calling in, we're looking at 29 at this point. We're not the only ones. That's really par for the course for most cities and towns right now. But you're exactly right. The reval project is to really make sure we have accurate inventory of your real estate in town. We do sales analysis throughout the town. Different areas of town may be affected differently than others, all driven off of sales, whatever sale data that we can use over the last couple of years. Sometimes we go back 3 years if needed, just to give us the best costs that we can put what we call just value on the properties. So when we get done the revaluation, we don't talk tax bills. We try to get them done well before commitment. It always used to be, we'll get the reval done. Here's your value, here's your tax bill. And then, well, the reval company did this to me and it's not really the case. So what we try to do is we try to get the reval done well before the tax bill. So we're doing Hamden. I'm out of Herman and we're finishing up Hamden right now. So within the next couple of months, we'll have everybody's new value to them. Their commitment isn't until July. So that's when the tax bill portion happens. Our conversation is just the value. Like if you're gonna put your house or piece of property on the market tomorrow, we wanna be within a 10% window up and down of what you'd sell it for. It's mass appraisal. It's not like a bank appraisal where you're gonna get a loan from Machias Savings and they're really trying to hone in on exactly the exact market value. We're mass ad valorem taxation, mass appraisal. We're in a 10% window up or down. If we hit that, we've done our job. So really to start the revaluation process, we're gonna be sending these letters out. And I kind of wanted to talk with everybody here tonight about it. We've gone through some changes with our company. We've started out the last several years, we've been RCS Assessment Services. We're expanding our service to more broad municipal consulting. I have town manager experience, code enforcement, economic development. People in our team have similar experiences, so we're offering a broader brush to different towns and cities throughout the state. So Municipal Consulting Group is now our parent company. RCS is a DBA of MCG, Municipal Consulting Group, but we can keep it as RCS if that is less confusing to the public. We don't want to make anyone think a different company is coming to town. But since we haven't sent the letters out, I just wanted to get your thoughts on going with just the Municipal Consulting Group, because that's where we'll be within a couple of years. But Not anything that we really need to hammer out tonight, but just kind of something to be thinking about too. As far as any public discussion, if it makes more sense to just stay with RCS, that's what we'll do. But when you go to our website, you'll see different stories of municipal consulting group moving to RCS, or excuse me, RCS and the municipal consulting group. So it's all explained clearly, but for communication purposes, we may just want to discuss that a little bit to see what makes the most sense. We have a list of all the people that will be out visiting the properties. Our cars are marked very well. We have vests on, ID, you know, every town's a little bit different on what they require. So we do whatever is most comfortable with the residents of the town. Planning to start as soon as we can. It was a nice day out today, so everybody's getting a little itch to get out of the office, so. We'll be getting those letters out very quickly. So you guys can expect to see something from us here very soon, and inspections to follow. So we do exterior inspections on the mailer. There's an option to take an interior survey of your property. Some people, generally we get into about 25% of the houses, and that's just straight data from all the reval we've done. Bangor's having one right now, and I think they're at 18%. So a lot of folks don't like to let you in, but with our letter, we have a QR code, we have a link on our website that anybody that doesn't want to, or for whatever reason, they can go in and fill out information on their property, just general information.
Well, what would those reasons be? Like why you would want you in or why you would not want you in?
They would not want us in because they feel their taxes are gonna go through the roof. If we see what you really have inside. So,
Because you feel that, or is that's
because that's the common misconception.
misconception?
Right, so the more data we have on your house, the better. So if we have to guess, we're not gonna guess that you have carpet, old countertops, old cabinetry, like we're gonna guess based upon what we feel the outside of your property looks like. So it's more of a disservice to the resident. So when the first house I bought, the tax assessor came, I did not let him in because I was told, don't let the assessor in. And I believe now that I'm on this side, I understand what he was looking for and really just trying to get the best information possible. So it's beneficial to let us in without that inspection. If we have something wrong and we go through the process and there's no discussion, I don't want to say you're barred from an appeal, but it makes your argument for an appeal and your assessment very difficult. And we can't always just drop everything and run back out and do the interior inspection, you know, at that time. So it's best to let us in when we're there or reschedule while we're in town doing the inspections.
So what do you look for when you go inside?
Overall condition, bathrooms, your kitchen setup, you know, if there's been any remodels done, it helps us grade the home. So we usually start the inspection in the basement or slab, if you're on a slab or whatever type of foundation you're on. But we grade your home based upon the style of construction. So when we're inside, we get a good chance to look at your windows, 2x4 construction, 2x6 construction. If there's been any updates that may give you more value, things of that nature.
What's considered living space for square footage? In other words, you know, I have a basement, it's not a finished basement,
Mhm.
and I have a, you know, living space. Is the basement considered part of the living space?
It can be, like, we wouldn't consider it living area if you just have like a craft room set up or a workbench or things of that nature.
You don't have what?
Like if you have a little craft area
Oh, okay.
or something like that, but if it was intended to be a place where you went down and watched the Super Bowl or had, you had family gatherings down there, or something of that nature, like it's comfortable living area, heated, we would consider that living area. So there's a good example of if someone thinks you have living area in your basement, based upon what inspection, they put it down there, if we don't go in to look at it, we're gonna leave it on there, we're not gonna take it off.
Online, when it says about the interior inspection, it does say on your website that disqualifies you from an appeal. You said that it doesn't quite.
We're not, we say that to try to encourage people to let us in. In Maine Revenue Services, information they put out, they say it disqualify you, we go back out and do it. So if somebody said, hey, we'd love for you to come take a look, as long as we can fit it in, we'd be back up to it.
Second question on the interior inspection, do your people have slippers or covers for shoes? Because mine is a no shoe home.
We pop them off if we need to, we talked about getting something to help with that, so we'll accommodate whatever,
That's good.
whatever's
And
needed.
then thirdly, on your website, it says take a survey. And that's my question. I didn't open it or anything, but what is the survey about? Because I was expecting a letter first. And you're now saying that the letter will come soon. So I just wanted to check your website out and it said take the survey.
Yeah, so we have it ready to go. We were thinking we were gonna start here this past fall. But we had some staff turnover, so we didn't get out here in the fall. We had we anticipated. We had the letter ready to go and we were coming down and then we just weren't able to.
Okay, that answers the next question, because I thought you guys, from our town meeting that was gonna start last year,
Yeah.
so.
And we've done preliminary. We've spent some time looking, there's a lot more to the reval than just the actual inspection part, though that's what everybody sees, but we've been, you're going from vision to trio, so that's a big move. We're preparing that, we're working with vision. The totally different software, which it's a good
Is it user friendly? Cause I'll tell you, Vision is.
trio, is, yes.
Okay, I like Vision on my side looking at it, but
Yeah. From my experience, vision is good. There's a lot to vision. Trio is easier to look at and understand, and there's a better flow to it.
Do you take photos inside or is it all just documented by paper?
Just documented by paper. We can't, some people actually ask that we take photos inside, we will. They don't go anywhere, they're with us. But we don't, it's not our practice to take interior photos.
Do you look at furnishings or just basically condition of the house?
Well, furnishings as far as permanent furnishing, like fixtures and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Your couches and stuff like that, no.
Do you use the old assessor's field cards?
Mhm. That's what we start with. We go out with the old vision cards. We implement a lot of software, so we use ArcGIS. We usually put together a reval app for every town, so we come to your house. It shows you on a map, you know where we're at. We still use paper. We can't collect everything electronically because you're sketching and drawing and doing a bunch of different things, but we'll use, for here, we'll probably have a vision card, a new trio card, and our iPads.
Do you make appointments to visit the houses?
If they'd like to, yeah. We typically will send this out. Say you can expect us soon. And we leave door hangers if you're not there, so then you can call, email,
Okay, schedule.
yeah. But it's intended to be you know we're coming, unless you call us and say, don't step on my property, we're gonna assume that it's okay to go around and do things. We don't, I mean, certainly we respect everybody's privacy. So if it's a private area, we don't open gates, we don't walk around hedges. We're very respectful
How,
of that.
how do you handle solar panels and things like that? Are they considered appliances still?
So that is the case by case, depending on how the town is. So every town handles it different. If your town assesses for solar, then we'll at least include that in our field inspection work, so we know that there's solar there.
Well, when I installed my system, the state was clear that it was not to be taxed.
Well, and you can apply for an exemption.
Right.
Yeah, you apply
Yeah,
for solar.
plugged it in,
Yeah, if.
Yeah.
I did.
Some towns have said, don't even look at it, which is fine.
So what
Other
is-
towns,
So what does the town, South Thompson say? That-
He's gonna collect it and let us know what's there, and then we'll make a decision. I don't see us taxing solar, just like we're not gonna tax your couch or your bed. But if it increases the value of your home, then it would be included in your evaluation.
Well, that's what I'm asking, you know, because the original intent was like it was considered an appliance, like a washing machine. So therefore, you know, ought to be ignored in the valuation of the home. And then when I go to sell my house, I said, well, look at my nice washing machine, you know, pay me extra for it.
Right.
But that's not part of the assessment.
Cause when I had the bank assess my house, they didn't consider solar an increase or anything.
Mhm. So right now, it's a lot like when heat pumps came around.
Yeah.
You know, at first, are we gonna tax them? Are we not gonna tax them? How confident are you in the inventory that you have? So I go by, if I don't know within reason, I mean, people will put solar up without notifying the town, and maybe you don't need to pull a permit for solar either, but if I'm not confident prior to a revaluation that we have all the people with solar, I'm not gonna recommend taxing someone that we can see has solar when we aren't taxing the rest of them, so. I have yet to see any sales data that shows solar is a value added to a home. But that, I believe, is probably coming, you know, it's just becoming more and more regular, so.
Do you measure the outside of the house?
Yes, yep.
I have a question. Do you assess only buildings, I mean, properties that have construction on them, or do you assign vacant lots as well?
We do them all.
Okay, including municipal properties?
Yep.
So I'm thinking of the preserve. We are going to pay good money to have an appraisal. I'm wondering if he could be used.
Yeah.
What's your appraisal for?
Well, we need an appraisal of the land, of the plot that we put into, we have constituted a preserve. And Land Farm Future is asking for an assessment of the property. So.
They may accept,
Well, it will be, at least I would love to, when are you going to be done?
Next,
so, yeah,
April
End of
20th.
2 commitments from now.
End of April.
And maybe some, because, okay. Well, yeah,
27.
27,
So not,
goodness.
not next commitment,
Yeah,
the
so
following.
that's gonna be too late, but that would be interesting. That could have saved us money.
We continue the discussion about solar, are appliances considered in your assessment?
I mean, we don't really count appliances, so to speak, but if you have a double stove, double oven, a really big fridge that's built in, we look at that as the overall quality of the home.
The house generator,
House generator we add in, yeah.
House battery?
House batteries. Not specifically, no, we don't single that out. Would it be attached to
It's probably.
It's part of the solar.
part of the solar, yeah, so if, that would fall under the solar part, if we go that way. But we collect all that information, so we have it.
But like, do you differentiate heating systems?
Yep.
And is there a scale that we can see online on, you know?
I mean, you can, but we put cost to it, so the way assessing works is we have grading systems. And your average, so like a forced warm air furnace is our 3/100 or your average grade. So then if you start going higher and lower than that, if you have radiant, we have an option to increase radiant. But we increase the grade because of that. So it's not always pound for pound, all right, radiant is gonna be $3 more a square foot. Because it's that much better than forced warm air. We grade properties based on 10 different building components, foundation, roof, siding, framing. Heating, a lot of different things, quality of. It's not like every little detail of your home is mapped out with a price to it. It's, we generally grade the homes based upon quality of the build and the condition that they're in. And we assign costs to different style homes.
So if I make my house dirty, will I be?
Usually. So if you come, usually the outside is a great indication of the inside, like it's almost, you come to my house, you'll see 3 young children. You're gonna see toys, you walk inside, it's the same thing, you know, so you get a pretty good feel. Just by the outside of the home, and then when someone opens up their front door, you get a good idea of where that house is at.
Do you, tax the pig house that I have?
We don't get into stuff like that,
Okay,
you know.
just asking, because,
It would have to be a really nice big house.
no, it's not.
I'm not trying to be funny here, but we
But
don't,
I do have a hobby farm, so I have a goat house, I have a
Yeah.
pig house, I have a turkey house.
So they made a brick with straw.
usually,
C-111, please.
things of that nature, we put maybe a sound value of $500 on a shed. But we don't. The last thing we wanna be arguing with you about is the structures of the farm.
And then this is a little different with my property. I have another house on the property that I rent out, and my renters have a shed. Will I be taxed for that shed? It's not mine. But that's a concern for me.
Mhm. Typically, it goes to the landowner. What I would suggest is maybe if they're paying you rent,
Change the rent.
say,
Okay,
you're adding, we've never really pieced it out like that. Like they usually stays with the.
okay.
Are you focusing just on the house, or you consider the amount of land and the siting and everything?
Yep. You know, amount of land, I mean, we develop land schedules. So in the assessing world, the first acre of, no matter how big your parcel is. And even if it's smaller than an acre, maybe you have half acre house lots in some areas of town, but. The first acre and under is the brunt of the assessment. So, for example, if a house acre, a 1 acre house lot is selling for $10,000. Just because you have 10 acres doesn't make that worth $100,000. So we say the first acre is 10,000, remaining land, $1,000 an acre, $1,000 an acre, whatever we can extract from the local market to help us put numbers on those.
So do you differentiate whether the driveway is paved or not? Or if there is landscaping, like masonry stuff?
In the overall graded lot.
I have a fair amount of marsh on that property. How do you deal with that?
If it's delineated out on the property card where we can see that it's unusable marshland, which usually it is, we call that wasteland.
Okay.
Standard $100 an acre, roughly.
So the woman is talking about the shed. So it's temporary structures versus permanent structures. Do you just dismiss the temporary structures or you do add that in?
If
you have a
it,
greenhouse or a shed.
yeah, so there's another misconception is that if you can move it, we can't tax you on it. But if it's a shed that's gonna be there, we will add it to the property card for taxation. If it's a greenhouse that could get blown over this weekend, we don't. You know, maybe like if you have a greenhouse that holds, you know, that is used and is gonna stay there, we would add that in. But anything that comes from Walmart that you put up on a weekend and can just as easily disappear, we don't add that in.
What about a shelter king, those canvas we store hay in? So,
We don't add that in. Oh. We try not to overdo it. We don't. We try to add what will generate value to your property. Not the other way.
How would the opening up of a quarry affect, the homes surrounding the quarry?
That's another case by case basis. There's no black and white explanation to that. You know, if a quarry opens up and it shows in sale data that it has reduced value, then we would appropriately value those neighboring properties.
But what happens if you don't have sales data? Because there's not a lot of turnover in this town.
Mhm. It makes it more difficult, no doubt about it. But that would be a discussion with those neighboring properties. We'd go out and see what they're dealing with and we would make our own judgment call based upon that. I've been in situations where I've seen things built, not always a quarry, but you might have an apartment building built right next to your house and that affects things. You may have a retail shop open up, you know, it's not always common, but things can make the neighborhood different and can affect value. So we would take that into consideration, even if we don't have specific sales.
Do you rely on the homeowners and to alert you to that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
I had a question on erosion, like if the river's declining your land,
Mhm.
is that reflected or measured, or, cause it's portions of acreage that's disappearing, and then other
Sure.
people are putting riprap and, you know, stone walls, so is that
Yep.
add value and, you know, like the minus of land from
Right.
what, calculated or
Mhm.
not, just gone, it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, and we would take that case by case basis again. You know, you're gonna know your property a lot better than we are gonna know it. So if we can, you know, very rare, I mean, a lot of times people think that residents will lie to us, and it does happen, but for the most part, people are very honest with us and tell us what's going on with their property, and I tend to believe them. In a situation like that, if we can look at the maps and we can see where you're being affected, then we would take that into consideration for sure. We would not. I mean, again, based on if you put a retaining wall that then had nice steps going down and, you know, something that really enhanced your property for resale value, then maybe. But if you're just trying to save your property from going into the river, that's a little bit different. We wouldn't necessarily add more value on the, even though retaining walls can be very expensive. we wouldn't necessarily add value just because of that, but if it added value to your property, then we would take a look at that, take a look.
You know, usually it costs a lot to kind of do that, you know, hire. You know, I don't know. Like that adds a big, which probably does, I mean, it's
Yeah,
preservation of your land, if you don't do it, you lose it, and if you
yeah,
do it, then you gotta pay double, you know, you gotta pay
Right.
to stop it and pay it.
yeah. And if it's, you know, from my experience, like we've never increased land value based upon just a retaining wall. It's only been when that retaining wall turns into more than just a retaining wall. Or people to use, or access to water, things like that, you know, it can add some value, but it's very rare that we. run into that
How do you
situation.
handle access to water?
So it all depends on the type of water, river, ocean, deep water, mud flats. Tidal, you know, it all depends. But I don't have a black and white answer to water access. It would all depend.
You know, when you're doing your sales analysis and the real estate market now isn't that good, basically, because of high interest rates. How far out do you go research for sale and developing your grading? Because I assume the grading would be like 1 through 5 or something.
Mhm.
How far out do you go? Do you look at, is it in the high end properties versus in the middle,
Yeah.
what type of research do you do in developing your cost schedules?
Mhm. So it will depend on, how many qualified sales there are in town. So if there's not much turnover here, we try to go 2 years, standard 2 years is what we look at. Sometimes we have to go back further, depending on the volume of sales. But this might be a good segue into our Power BI, if we can show you a little bit of what we do here. So the biggest, or I shouldn't say biggest, but one question that always comes up from every town. We get done towards the end of the reval and there's a lot going on. And towns say, how do we never have to do this again? Like, how do we prevent having to go through the reval? Not because people's taxes go up, but it's just the legwork of informing everybody. So like in Holden, their ratio was at 50%. So everybody's assessment basically doubled. So everybody thought their tax bill was double, which wasn't the case, but what that brought, it brought a lot of meetings like this and discussions, and just was a lot of time spent on that. So what we develop is a data analytics tool that does just exactly what you were asking about sales. So it will show the market right now. And a lot of what we do, we contract with the towns after we're done the revaluation. Because a lot of questions are, hey, well, what if the market goes down? Is our assessments going to go down? And the answer is, they should. I'm not the assessor here, but if the market shows that it's dropped, then most of the time, and I know Kevin, very good assessor, and I feel he would say the same thing I am. You know, if the sales drop, so will assessments. But if you can you hover on that 1 of 22 in the bottom middle? It's at the very bottom of the page, a little bit more.
Oh, right here.
Yep,
Yeah.
or maybe click on that.
Sure. I was looking about that too.
And then if you go to Holden Sales,
This one or the?
yep, no, yep, right
Okay.
there. And then if you could click on land and building, kind of middle,
Oh, yeah.
middle left right there. So this shows all the sales in Holden. We have a sale date up top, January 1, 2023 to 5/3/2025. That's the sales data we use for their revaluation. It maps it out over the towns. The GIS portion of the town, it shows where they are throughout town. It shows up top, our average ratio is at 100. The COD, coefficient of dispersion, which is what we call the quality rating, it shows. Yes, you might be up and down, but you're consistently up and down. You're not up and down wide margins. You're up and down steady. And this is how, so we start putting costs into the system. You know, we look at arm's length transaction developed, single family home, 1 acre lot is what we're looking for. And then we start to deduce costs by extracting land values, putting costs into our system. And just start running sales ratios to see how they come out. So we're going through this exercise right now in Camden. We have half a dozen revals going on right now, actually. But this is how we get 98% of everything very, very tight with the local market. We go out to Holden, have a big town meeting, we have this up, it's really helpful to go through this, and you can just see where we've been, what we've done, how we've done things, and where we're at, as far as being equitable with assessments.
So you only use South Thomaston's data, like only sales within South Thomaston?
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. That's the other thing, like an appraiser can use anywhere.
Right.
As long as they think it's a
Okay.
compare. We have to stay within the town. We don't care what things are selling for Rockland. Sometimes waterfront, it is helpful just to kind of see what things are going for, because that's usually a tough sale to find.
Mhm.
But that's where we just start putting different values to different land types, different buildings, and just see how it starts to react. And here at Holden, we did a pretty good job for them, and they have a solid database to use moving forward. So they're gonna contract with us, at least that's what the discussion has been. We're not the assessor there, they have their own assessor's agent. And we're going to look at sales every year. So the state is a few years behind in their sales data that they look at for the town. We're gonna be able to track where the state says you're gonna be, just help with that. There shouldn't be huge up and down, even the first couple of years after the revaluation, like there should be pretty steady.
How do you handle with houses that are supposed to be on a floodplain?
Supposed to be on foot,
Well,
or?
We're on a floodplain on paper,
Mhm,
but I'm 23 feet up off of high tide.
mhm,
So our insurance company basically says you're not in a floodplain.
yeah. So I guess it would take a very special case of someone not being able to live in a house because it was in danger of flooding. Usually if they're there and people are using them, even though maybe sometimes people don't build where they're supposed to build, and they can't get a letter of map amendment from FEMA and show that they're out of the floodplain. If there was something specific to that property that decreased its value, we would certainly take that into consideration. That's a good question.
Will we have access to something like that when you're done, or no, this is
Depends
proprietary?
on how this meeting and
Don't ask me.
It's gonna raise my taxes, no way.
we haven't done this yet, but we can make this a public facing view, so anybody can go look at it. I just haven't been that brave yet to turn it around, but maybe we do that. Do that this time. It can be good if it's in the right format, where it's easy for the public to consume it. Like, we have our cost files on here and our land schedules, and that can, not that they're bad questions, but it can cause a lot of questions that, we wind up spending a lot of time going over, but, we've been discussing it, and I think it would be helpful, for people to go over. I'm happy to hear you've already been on our website. That's good. I like that feedback, because that's where we're trying. We hired a marketing company to help us with that, so I don't know when you've been on there.
Last week.
Last week, okay, so you've probably seen the new site and how it's been changing, just recently, just in the last 2 or 3 weeks. But we're trying to make that a tool. So if you have questions, you'll get 95% of it answered there, and then whatever's left, then you reach out to us and, but we're working on that right now.
Are you paid out of our budget somehow, some way? I guess the other question I had for humor is, do you accept bribes?
The first day of assessing school, they tell you the story about the assessor that went to jail. It's burned in your mind not to go down that road, but. They're big projects. It's a big undertaking. We're looking for what I call long-term clients. We do revals because towns need them. So I was in Herman the last 10 years. I felt like I was gonna retire there. I was the assessor for the first half dozen, assessor in code, and then I was a town manager for the last couple of years. But it was too much of my time where I'm at, and towns kept calling and saying, hey, we need assessing help, we need revals done. So we just decided to go out on our own. But we're looking for long-term clients, like that's because we don't want to be doing revals. A lot of assessing companies will go out there, do a reval, and the clock starts ticking where they can come back to you and say, hey, it's been 10 years. We need to do another reval for you. We're trying to extend out however long possible to keep towns out of having to do revals. They're big projects. We're not interested in strictly doing revals for the rest of our company's time. Like, we're looking to get towns straight, help them stay straight, and keep on the right track so that hopefully it's a really long time before you have to do this.
Will you issue a summary report at the end, like describing the town, the kind of properties and so forth?
Yeah, so that was one discussion we had with Kevin a bit, was a detailed revaluation book that we'll provide. Right.
What you're saying is a little different than what you hear the state wants towns to be reevaluated, like at least every 20 years, because we haven't been 20 years in all the towns around here, and that's what's caused some of it, plus the economics, COVID and everything. So what you're saying is that towns won't need to go down that path if you come in and look at the sales data and tell the select board.
And maintain good data. Like, that's another big, like you had mentioned, making sure you have good quality data in the system. So it's usually accompanied by quarterly review. Just go out and touch a quarter of the town, which it wouldn't take long either. It really wouldn't, especially once you get everything working how it should be. Like, it's very easy for us to come in and do a quarter of the town. So in an ideal situation like that, the state would never come in and say, you have to have a rebound line. What happens, and what everybody has realized, like the assessing has changed, the sales have gone up dramatically over the last half a dozen years. And so a lot of small towns, like you can't, it's too different now than how it used to be where, you could get by with just making small adjustments and it's just very different now. The state, we're the only ones doing this that I'm aware of in the state.
Camille,
To be the
coming around, is it open?
most forward-thinking company in the state, using this type of technology. Ellsworth just hired us on, to be support for their assessing department, to do just that, like bring them up into the 21st century and.
So with Trio and our assessor, the information online would then be up to date. For example, with Vision. The town has assessed us in the last 3 years is up to 69%, but what's on Vision is 4 years old, basically.
I see. Yeah.
So with the new software and after the revow, will this always then be up to date, current, up for the year?
I can partially answer that. One of the reasons that we are migrating to Trio is because Vision was not user-friendly for doing what we've done the last 3 years. As long as I've been here, we have never done that before. So what your taxes, what your value was 10 years ago was probably your value today. In the last 3 years, though, we've raised it, okay? But to do that, Kevin had to literally go into the system and fat finger every single one of them to create the tax bill. But Vision wouldn't allow him to do that blanket. He couldn't go in and say, raise everybody 25%. Trio will allow you to do that. That's one of the advantages to Trio. That's assuming we do that in the future. And the state has gotten off of the 10-year, 20-year. All they care about is how you compare to their value. And they recommend that if you're more than 10% off, or your quality rating is off by a significant amount, that you do a reeval.
You might want to explain quality rating.
The overall, they have one percentage that's based on the overall town value. But there are pockets of the town, shorefront, non-shorefront, that one could go up higher than the other. And so the difference between those becomes the quality rating, how accurate it is across the board. So one's not askew. Ours has been very, very close. And I can surmise why that is, but the bottom line is our quality rating did not go bad. What went bad was 3 years in a row being more than 10% out. And in fact, last time I think it was 70% out, so, or 75. So we have had to Band-Aid it. It is not something towns like to do. It's not something the assessor's agent likes to do. It's time consuming, it's an extra cost. And it's a significant emotional event for those that look at their tax bill and think their taxes are going up because we raised the value of their house. Which again, I'll say, it's not true. Your tax bills went up because the cost went up of running the town or the school. Did I say or the school? Is that you done with your primary? I do have a couple of questions on the process. You've got folks that are gonna be out and about in the town. And their cars are gonna be marked. They're gonna be marked with MSG or RCS.
Well, that's what I wanted to discuss. Like, I wasn't sure how out of the bag RCS was. And if it made sense to keep it with RCS. Or am I'm getting my acronym?
I think so. I think it is, because that's what we publicize.
Yeah.
So it would, just as long as it's not both.
Sure.
I think if we're consistent. And the other is, you're gonna let the front office know what areas you guys are working in,
Yep.
so that when people call and say there's somebody in my yard or looking at my house, we can say, yeah, that's RCS doing their read.
Absolutely.
Okay. The only, and you'll have credentials if somebody
Yep.
stops you and asks you, okay. The only other thing about it is sales. Our assessor's agent is not allowed to chase sales. So we have to rely on the state to say, this is what the sales have said, and they do the same thing. They actually do go back 3 years. They don't count last year unless it's significant. So they're doing the same process basically the state does when they set their value. Our assessor's agent is not allowed to chase those sales. So on a day-to-day basis, a year-to-year basis, he can't go in and say, oh, the sales are up, I'm gonna raise sales in a shorefront are up, I'm gonna raise shorefront. He's not allowed to do that. What can happen is we can do mini revals, which is what you're talking about, contracting with us to do. So that they can go out and look and say, yeah, you don't have any problems, or you're developing a problem in this area before the state tells us that there's a problem, and before it impacts the exemptions that people are getting.
Yeah, and this, our analytics tool here, we, if you have zoning, we divide it up by zone. We divide it up by maps, so that we're able to cross reference a lot of different data sets to really help us hone in on that.
Use aerial surveillance?
It's heading that way, but I'm not interested in that, no.
Google Maps, is there.
Google Maps, that's what we use, yeah. Well, we're not, assessing has changed, you know, we're not out there. You know, we wanna get good information, but we're not sneaky about it, you know, we wanna be upfront with everybody and get information honestly. The drone situation, I don't even like to go look at listings online of interior pictures for a town we're not rebound. So like if I'm the single assessor in Herman, I would never go chase sales and look at someone's interior and make changes based upon that. The reval is when you capture that information. That's when you get it done.
Jeff, may I ask how much the reevaluation is costing the town?
It is $172,500. And we, for several years, we were putting money into a reserve account for this. We ended up having to do it much quicker than we thought. We were thinking we had a few more years to do it. But two things happened. We were able to spread it out rather than do it all in 1 year. So half of it is being done in this fiscal year and half of it's being paid for next fiscal year. I think that having spread it out and allowing them to do it 2 years, and the fact that everybody is in a waiting line, the queue is huge. Originally, we were told by some companies 5 years was the earliest we could get it done. And they were able to get in 2 years. So we've had this on the books for 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was the fall of 24 that we
Yeah,
first.
when we first started talking about it, which is when the first one hit us. Band-Aid. Anything else?
How many people are you gonna have out in the field doing the work? Do you have any idea, or at least?
3 or 4.
What is it, their background, basically? They're gonna be basically the ones that are setting the grades of the property.
Mhm.
Is gonna be a supervisor who reviews? Yeah, no, I'm asking, the people out there who are gonna be setting the initial grade.
Mhm.
And is there gonna be a review by the company? Make sure there's conformity and how those grades are being applied.
Yes, yeah, the grading of the properties is the hardest thing. That's the most difficult thing. And assessors, even now, we're improving and finding better ways to grade properties. So when we first started, when we first started talking with the town, there was only 3 or 4 of us. Now we're up to, with part-time people, there's almost 20. By the end of next month, we'll have 10 full-time folks on staff. I believe 6 of us are certified main assessors, but that grows every year as we get people certified. We take a lot of pictures. So when we do our field review, we double check grading. Part of the information up here is if you hover over, I may not have had him put it on the map, but the 9 of 12 again, or 9 of 22, I'm sorry. And then, yeah, hold and sale grades. So typically, you go out and collect your data, you get it all in the system, and then you go do drive-by grading to see if you're consistent. This helps eliminate a lot of that, where we can go down Main Street and say, all right, everything's graded as a 2/100. But then all of a sudden we have a 4. We can go in and specifically look at that account and say, why is this a 4? Or we can go down through and say, hey, our sales on Main Street are low. We go check our grading. Is our grading low? Is our grading high? If the sales are high, so. Grading is the toughest part. We take a lot of pictures. We review in-house and we review on. We keep our grading simple. We're 3/100, 3, and then we factor up 10, or down 10%. And that's it. We've only got 3 options per grade. So as long as we land in that grade consistently, we're gonna be in a good position.
So you're taking pictures, if we let you in our house, you're taking pictures?
Exterior,
Oh, exterior, okay.
yeah, nothing interior is, we have a set of questions we ask and we're just generally looking at the condition of the property.
I'm gonna ask you again, you said you're gonna send a letter out soon. Can you qualify that a little more? Is it March, April?
I would say no later than March. And I would say probably the first part of March, once we wanted to have this meeting, make sure we were good, get this letter sent out, and you'll see us out.
And the effects of this will impact our taxes in 27, no matter.
Yes, the ones the tax bills we set in 27. So, yeah, your October 27 is when you'll see the first. Nice. And you do have some time set aside at the very end so that people can come in and say, wait a minute, you're way off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we're trying to find better ways to do it all the time.
Thanks, Josh.
Down.